goodness and do that which is right. Then only can we see between just you and me the glory of Islam and its endless beauty. No matter where you're from, no matter who you are, when it's time to leave.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Unity the Way Forward. I'm your host, Jamil Dar, and joining me in the studio is our Sheikh, Dr. Haitham Al-Haddad, who is the Managing Director of Muslim Research and Development Foundation, or better known as MRDF, an organization based in the UK working to find practical solutions for the Muslims in the West. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Sheikh.
Hayyakum Allah wa sahlan. Welcome, brother, and welcome to all brothers and sisters watching this program.
Jazakallah khair. In our previous episode, we discussed unity and we discussed its definition. And we took unity back to the Khilafah and we tied Khilafah and unity together. We extracted many benefits and saying that Khilafah is a universal concept, not exclusive to anyone in particular. So moving on from there, Sheikh, can we then say that can we achieve unity without Khilafah?
Yeah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. Yes, this is a topic that is widely discussed now. Do we really need Khilafah? If we can achieve unity without Khilafah, do we still need a Khilafah or not? I can't claim that I will give a definite answer about this because this is a huge topic. However, I will just give some glimpse, as they say, or some dimensions for us to consider when we talk about this important topic.
Right.
You remember last time we said that the most important thing is that we need to be united on the strategic decisions for our ummah, even if we don't have the political symbolic representation of the unity of the ummah, which is Khilafah. But here I would like to stress that unity by itself and being under one Khalifa has been originated from textual evidences, as we will discuss inshallah, has been also originated from the practice of Muslims.
Right.
Now, can we say that this political representations of the unity of the Ummah is linked to a specific reason? It is not by itself intended by Sharia.
Okay.
This is something that we need really big scholars to discuss this in conferences, not just individually. And we need collective ijtihad. So, but we need to understand certain things that are relevant to our viewers here. When we say that, by the way, just before we start this, you know, last time we said that Muslims were united under one Khalifa throughout history, or throughout the most important periods in our history. It was just recent where some, maybe you can call scholars or some researchers or some people of knowledge, started to discuss the significance of this representation of Khilafah. And if I may just digress a little bit and mention this important point. You know, the Khilafah, the Uthman Khilafah fell in 1924.
Okay.
In 1926, the Azhar called for a conference for Muslim scholars from all over the world to discuss the issue of Khilafah. This is in 1926, 2 years after the fall of Khilafah, the Uthman Khilafah. And they were discussing whether we really need Khilafah or not. It is a huge topic. But one of the papers that have been presented, and later on it was transferred into a book, is a paper written by Ali Abdul Razzaq.
Okay.
Or Ali Abdul Raziq. Ali Abdul Raziq, he is the brother of Mustafa Abdul Raziq. Ali Abdul Raziq died in 1966. His brother Mustafa Abdul Raziq, he was appointed in 1957, during that time, as the Sheikh of Al-Azhar. And you know the Sheikh of Al-Azhar, the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar, is a very important position in the Muslim world, not only in Egypt.
Exactly.
So this is Mustafa Abdul Raziq, and his brother is Ali Abdul Raziq, who presented this paper about Khilafah. Later on, it was written or printed in a book called Al-Islam wa Usul al-Hukm, Al-Islam and the Principles of Governance.
Right.
This book was translated recently, or I came across the translation recently, and now Western academics are taking care of this book, putting attention to this book and to the concept of Khilafah, and they are in fact promoting the idea that Ali Abdul Raziq came up with. His idea was that we don't need Khilafah. Khilafah is just a political stance that some people taken at a particular time. It is not a religious duty, and it has been misused and misunderstood. And he said it was even abused by the Khalifas themselves, because they have the elite around them and they have the power. So they abused the power.
Right.
And he said that the law of governance, so this is the first point that he was talking about, that Khilafah as a position was abused and was misunderstood. And then he said that it is not a religious duty. This is the second point. It is just a decision, it was a decision taken by some political people at specific times.
Okay.
Then the third point that he mentioned is that does Allah Jalla wa Ala impose on us as Muslims a certain law or a certain way of governance, or it is up to us human beings to choose any law of governance?
Right.
And then he was discussing another point, which is, if we say that the sovereignty belongs to Allah Jalla wa Ala, but is that sovereignty represented in Khilafah, or it is left to people? How can they run their affairs?
Okay.
And the Khalifa, he mentioned an important point, which was misunderstood by some Muslim intellectuals and some even good Muslims, where the Khalifa, does he receive his authority from the religious dimension or from people? Does
Right.
he receive his authority from Allah or from the divine or from people? And they said, if we say that he received his position or his authority from Allah, from the divine, this entails many problems, because this person, he will see himself as a representative of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And this is very dangerous, and he will abuse his position. And moreover, how can we compare this with the principle of Mahdiyya, which is a principle introduced by some sects who said that prophethood ended by the Prophet ﷺ, but there were some representatives of the Prophet ﷺ who received kind of revelation after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. So if we say that the Khalifa is representing Allah Jalla wa Ala because he received his authority from Allah Jalla wa Ala, then is he, this Khalifa, similar to the concept of Mahdi or not? If we say that the Khalifa is not receiving his authority from the religious angle, yani is not receiving this from the divine, he is receiving his authority from people,
Right.
then it means that Khilafah is not a religious symbol or a religious duty. It's just people decided at a certain point to have one Khalifa. People might decide to have other forms of governance other than the Khilafah system. So this is the summary of what Ali Abdul Raziq came with. Now, people started to, or non-Muslims in particular these days, started to promote his ideas. And unfortunately, some Muslims accepted this, and they started to promote this. Now, we have to be aware of this direction of some intellectuals, especially we living in the West. We have to be aware of this issue. Now, there are some Muslims now of good intention who started to speak the same language, although the background is different. They said, irrespective of the position of Khilafah, unity between Muslims is the aim. If it can be satisfied and met without the political symbol, the Khalifa, then we don't need a Khilafah system, or we don't need a Khalifa.
Right.
So if we can achieve this, and some people are discussing this now. Now, when we discuss this, we say, yes, it is an important topic to discuss, which is unity between Muslims without a Khalifa. But we should differentiate between two cases. A case whereby we are discussing this out of necessity, or we are claiming that this is the Islamic principle.
Right.
This is the pure Islamic principle. Khilafah is just a decision taken by people because they have, by Muslims, because they have seen that this is the best form of governance. If we find another way of governance, then we should go for this, or we can go for this, and Khilafah is not a religious duty.
Right.
So they started to discuss this issue. And we need to make it clear that it is impossible. It is impossible that Muslims practiced Khilafah for all of, or almost, you can say, most of their time. We mentioned that the four rightly guided Khalifa, and that period ended in 40, year 40, when Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu was killed. Then the Umayyan period ended in 132 Hijrah.
Right.
Year 132 Hijrah. Then the Abbasi period ended in 654 Hijrah. So for 650 years, Muslims were living under one Khalifa.
Okay.
And during the Abbasi period, although there were some other countries around the central Khilafah in Baghdad, but those countries, none of them claimed that they are Khalifas next to the central Khilafah in Baghdad.
Okay.
And it was known in history as the Khilafah Abbasiyah, the Abbasi Caliphate. Then after that, even when the Caliphate in Baghdad fell down, after almost 100 and something years, the Ottoman Empire started as a Khilafah, and it was known as the Ottoman Caliphate, and it ended up in 1924. So most of our history, we were living in a Khilafah system.
If I could just ask you to just pause there for a moment. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back to this very fruitful topic.
We'll be friends, it's time we all unite. It's time to leave the shade and walk towards the light. Many errors have been made throughout our moving lives. It's time to seek forgiveness.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whom He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, for His messengership, for the revelation to be revealed. This is not for the human beings to make that decision. If a person would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, truthfully, asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to forgive. We have as Muslims a duty, and that is to recite the book of Allah, to ponder over the verses, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to act according to the Quran. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, but who would this mercy will be for? And the Prophet ﷺ was sent to all mankind. So the ummah or the people of the Prophet ﷺ are all mankind since the time of the Prophet ﷺ till the day of judgment. Why waste our life without getting to know every verse in the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us?
We all be friends, it's time we all unite. It's time to leave the shade and walk towards the light. Many errors have been made.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. We have a very interesting discussion taking place right now. Sheikh, we were talking about the Khilafah being divinely inspired or being a choice of the people. Could you continue shedding light on this topic, please?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So we just mentioned that some people now are talking, there are two types of people now. People talking about Khilafah, that it is just a matter of a choice, but they have certain agenda.
Right.
And we have to be careful of that agenda because they don't want Muslims to be united.
If I could just ask you, for the average Muslim like ourselves, how can we identify these signs? What are these signs or these symptoms?
Yeah. See, those people who are talking about this, they are not talking about unity of Muslims. They are just focusing on the attack of Khilafah, the concept of Khilafah. And they say that it is just a choice. As you said, it's not just divinely inspired. The other type of people, some good Muslims with good intention, they don't have agenda, certain agenda. They said that we need unity between Muslims, not necessarily in a form of Khilafah.
Right.
I prefer, just to avoid this discussion that whether Khilafah is a must now, and we should just focus on Khilafah now and the discussion behind it. I prefer that we maybe delay this discussion a little bit.
Okay.
And just focus on the real issue, that we need to be united, whether in a form of Khilafah or without Khilafah, at least as a step. And Khilafah as a concept, as we just said before, as we just said before the break, as a concept, it is very difficult to imagine that Khilafah as a concept was wrongly practiced by Muslims throughout history. It is very difficult to imagine this. So even if we want to say that Khilafah is not an Islamic concept, I think we should avoid talking about this. We might say, as I just said, that let us talk about unity between Muslims, irrespective of being under one Khalifa or not. But to attack the principle of Khilafah, this is very dangerous because we are attacking our history and we are attacking the practice of Muslims, of scholars who were eager to see Muslims united under one Khalifa throughout history. So let us leave that aside and be clear that the concept itself has been practiced, has been motivated by scholars because of the ayat and the ahadith, as we mentioned last episode, that Al-Qurtubi quoted ijma',
Right.
Al-Qurtubi and others quoted ijma' on this principle. Now, as we were talking about the difficult or the difficult involved in practicing Khilafah in that pure form under one Khalifa, let us move to the next step, which is unity between Muslims without Khilafah. Is that possible or not?
Okay.
Unity between Muslims without Khilafah. This is a very difficult discussion, as we said in the beginning, and we need to talk about two main things. First of all, unity between Muslims on a political level,
Okay.
and unity between Muslims on an economical level. So two things, political unity and economical unity. What do we mean by this? Political unity, even if we don't have one leader for all Muslim countries, at least we should have sort of unity between them on political or strategical political decisions. We can't let one Muslim country start war against whatever and we let them down. Or we can't let a Muslim country to be attacked alone and other Muslim countries just to sit aside and watching this.
Right.
This is something, because from a Sharia perspective, which again I'm always saying that we will discuss these ayat and the hadith, I'm leaving them aside, but let us understand the concept first.
Okay.
Because the principle of brotherhood, the principle of aiding Muslims, other principles compel us to take certain stances when we see some Muslims being attacked by others. So on a political level, strategic decisions have to be unified in a way where Muslim countries are moving as if they were one entity, even if they don't have one leader. Now, you know the Organization of Islamic Countries, the OIC, head now by Ihsan Oglo. This can be a very good platform for unity between Muslim countries. But we need this organization to take firm stances with regards to some political decisions on an international level. Let me give another example in terms of strategies. Now, we have seen what is happening in Libya, what is happening in Yemen, what is happening in Syria. The conflicts between the leaders of these countries and the people, and the uprising of those people against the oppression of their leaders is not fair at all, and it is not Islamic at all to leave those people who are living under oppression and being now killed. You know, in Syria people are killed every day. In Yemen people are killed every day. Let alone what is happening in Libya, where the president of Libya or the ex-president of Libya is still killing people and fighting them, and he wants to drag the country into a civil war. And this is what is happening in Yemen. Now, other Muslim countries, shame on them that they are just watching this situation and claiming that all of them belong to this organization, which is OIC, and doing nothing. In fact, as some people said, that shame on Muslim countries that they have seen the European Union, America, other countries trying to interfere into the situation and put a blockade against Syria, against the president of Syria and others, and yet Muslim countries have no say in this.
Sheikh, could we say that because of these events that Muslims lack confidence in this concept, and institutes and organizations like you mentioned lack credibility, which...
Excellent point. This is why when people discussing this, can we be united without the symbolic representation of Muslims, which is Khilafah? Can that happen or not? This is a real discussion, okay? But as I said, even if we ignore this or delay this discussion little bit, even if we delay the importance of Khilafah as a symbol and talk about unity, can really unity be achieved without Khilafah? And this is what is happening now. This is what we are seeing now. Okay, let us leave the political, just because of time, let us leave the political side, the political dimension aside. Let us talk about the economical side.
Right.
What do we mean by this? Is it Islamic that some countries, without naming any country, live a very luxurious life? The GPA is very high, while we see some other Muslim countries, even without mentioning name because of the sensitivity of the situation, many Muslim countries, you know, I read some statistics about certain countries. Poverty in some countries is more than 80%, which means that more than 80% of people are living under poverty line. And this situation is in many countries, many Muslim countries. Is this Islamic? Is this an Islamic situation? When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some people came to him, the very famous hadith, Mujtabi Nimar. They came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were suffering from poverty, hunger, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was so stressed because of their financial situation. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called for as-salah, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged Muslims to what? To donate for those people. And when people started to donate, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam became very, very happy. And you know the famous hadith, in the famous statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this story, when a person came with a big amount of food and jewelry and other things, and he put it in front of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he encouraged more people to donate. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever established a sunnah in Islam, then he will get the reward of it and the reward of all people to practice it after him. And in the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, during the year of famine, he said that he was about to impose on every single household of Muslims to host another family during that year until the crisis comes to an end. What does that mean? It means that we cannot leave some Muslim countries living in that miserable situation, and other Muslim countries are just enjoying a very luxurious life. So this unity, the economical unity between Muslims, is one of the main elements of unity that needs to be established, although we don't have a Khilafah system.
Thank you, Sheikh. Having discussed the strategic matters both from a political point of view as well as an economical point of view, in our next episode we're going to discuss the effects of unity, or how to achieve unity in Muslim minority countries. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We all be friends, it's time we all unite. It's time to leave the shade and walk towards the light. Many errors have been made throughout our moving lives. It's time to seek forgiveness and do that which is right. Then only can we see between just you and me the glory of Islam and its endless beauty. No matter where you're from, no matter who you are, when it's time to leave this world, we'll all
In the West, I'd like to welcome you to the show, Sheikh.
Hayyakum Allah wa sahlan. Welcome, brother, and welcome to all brothers and sisters watching this program.
Jazakallah khair. In our previous episode, we discussed unity, and we discussed its definition. And we took unity back to the Khilafah, and we tied Khilafah and unity together. We extracted many benefits, and saying that Khilafah is a universal concept, not exclusive to anyone in particular. So moving on from there, Sheikh, can we then say that, can we achieve unity without Khilafah?
Yeah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Yes, this is a topic that is widely discussed now. Do we really need Khilafah? If we can achieve unity without Khilafah, do we still need Khilafah or not? This is, I can't claim that I will give a definite answer about this, because this is a huge topic. However, I will just give some glimpse, as they say, or some dimensions for us to consider when we talk about this important topic.
Right.
You remember last time we said that the most important thing is that we need to be united on the strategic decisions for our ummah, even if we don't have the political symbolic representation of the unity of the ummah, which is Khilafah. But here I would like to stress that unity by itself and being under one Khalifa has been originated from textual evidences, as we will discuss inshallah, has been also originated from the practice of Muslims.
Right.
Now, can we say that this political representations of the unity of the Ummah is linked to a specific reason? It is not by itself intended by Sharia.
Okay.
This is something that we need really big scholars to discuss this in conferences, not just individually. And we need collective ijtihad. So, but we need to understand certain things that are relevant to our viewers here. When we say that, by the way, just before we start this, you know, last time we said that Muslims were united under one Khalifa throughout history, or throughout the most important periods in our history. It was just recent where some, maybe you can call scholars or some researchers or some people of knowledge, started to discuss the significance of this representation of Khilafah. And if I may just digress a little bit and mention this important point. You know, the Khilafah, the Ottoman Khilafah fell in 1924.
Okay.
In 1926,
Friends, it's time we all unite. It's time to leave the shade and walk towards the light. Many errors have been made throughout our moving lives. It's time to seek forgiveness and do that which is right. Then only can we see between just you and me the glory of Islam and its endless beauty. No matter where you're from, no matter who you are, when it's time to leave.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Unity the Way Forward. I'm your host, Jamil Dar, and joining me in the studio is our Sheikh, Dr. Haitham Al-Haddad, who is the Managing Director of Muslim Research and Development Foundation, or better known as MRDF, an organization based in the UK working to find practical solutions for the Muslims.
the Azhar called for a conference for Muslim scholars from all over the world to discuss the issue of Khilafah. This is in 1926, 2 years after the fall of Khilafah, the Ottoman Khilafah. And they were discussing whether we really need Khilafah or not. It is a huge topic. But one of the papers that have been presented, and later on it was transferred into a book, is a paper written by Ali Abdul Razzaq, or Ali Abdul Raziq. Ali Abdul Raziq, he is the brother of Mustafa Abdul Raziq. Ali Abdul Raziq died in 1966. His brother Mustafa Abdul Raziq, he was appointed in 1957 during that time as the Sheikh of Al-Azhar. And you know the Sheikh of Al-Azhar, the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar, is a very important position in the Muslim world, not only in Egypt.
Exactly.
So this is Mustafa Abdul Raziq, and his brother is Ali